let's have a warm welcome for Curt Ebersole.
Hi. Anybody here ever have an identity crisis? Yeah. I've been having an identity crisis for 61 years. When I was born, my parents decided that they wanted to name me after my father, whose name is John. But my mother didn't want me being called Johnny or Junior. So they decided to name me John, which sounds like my father's name, but spell it Jon. Apparently, they couldn't afford the H. And then in a bizarre twist of creativity, they decided to call me by my middle name, which is Curtis, so that they could distinguish between me and my father. So when I was old enough to understand all this, I decided, Curtis is foofy. So I decided I wanted to be called Curt. And for those of you who are taking notes, it's Curt with a C, not a K. Especially if you're a barista. I'll wait. So when I got to elementary school, the shit really hit the fan, because every year on the first day of school, I would dread when they would pull out that computer list and call off the names of the kids in the new class. And I would just pray that some year, one of them would call me Curt. But I would sit there and I'd wait, and sure enough, eventually the teacher would say, John Ebersole. Yeah, that's me. But my name is Curt. And then I'd have to explain the whole thing over again. And it was especially bad when I had to fill out those IBM forms, you know, the ones with the boxes and the bubbles. Yeah, because there's all those boxes for first name and only one box for middle initial. So that would force me at age 6 to make a judgment call. Be honest and write John for my first name and ensure ongoing confusion, or lie and write Curt as my first name, and then wait for the authorities to show up with an arrest warrant and a subpoena for my birth certificate. You'd think all of this would have been figured out by the time I was a senior in high school, but if you look at my senior yearbook photo, there it is, with a caption underneath that says, John C. Ebersole. And they spelled it John with an H. So this got to be dangerous at one point. I had to go into the hospital to have my impacted wisdom teeth surgically removed. And when I got in there, they put one of those hospital bracelets on me, but I didn't really think anything of it. The surgery went fine, but when I got into the recovery room, they couldn't wake me up. They had a whole team of doctors in there trying to work on me, shooting drugs into me, slapping my face, nothing to wake me up. Finally, they had to get my mom in there. She walked in, said, Curt, honey, wake up. Boom, I was awake. Of course, my ID bracelet said John, and in my stupor, I thought they were talking to my father. So I've talked enough about my name. Now I should go on, I should tell you how I identify as. Because that's the thing these days. Ellen DeGeneres did it, Pete Buttigieg did it. So at this point, you've heard me talking enough, and you've seen my mannerisms, and I know you've made an assumption. And yes, you're right. I identify as Pennsylvania Dutch. I grew up in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, in the heart of Amish country. You know, it's that part of the state with the really bizarre town names, really explicit names, which is really weird for a section of the state with good Christian values. So I'd like to take you on a short tour of Lancaster County, and all of these towns are real. You can Google them and get driving directions to every single one of them. So let's start out in the burgeoning town of Fertility. It is right next to Bird in Hand. There's a really sweet town called Lidditz, although you could pronounce it Le Tits. There's Leacock and Bearville. I had a date once in Mountville, but when I tried to get down the road and into intercourse, things just didn't work out. Instead, I ended up in Blue Ball. And at that point in my life, I thought, I am never going to make it to paradise. So, obviously, I'm not a stand-up comic. I got my start in music when I was in high school. I played in my high school band, and it was a really, really great experience. But I did have this one terrible incident once. I sat on the end of the row, which was right next to the edge of the stage. And I had this really bad habit of crossing my feet when I played. So on this one particular point, I'm playing, and things are going really well, I'm playing, and I'm emotional, and I'm playing. And suddenly I feel the weight of my body starting to go forward, and I can feel that my feet are stuck underneath my chair. And I can feel my body going forward, and I'm headed for the player in front of me, and all I can think about is falling into her, perhaps maiming her for life. And the only thing I could do at that moment was to use my foot to push me to the side. And so that's what I did. And I went to the side and down off the stage in the middle of a concert in a spectacular moment during a Strauss waltz. So I went down bravely. My clarinet was held safely in the air. I executed a perfect tuck and roll. I scrambled back up on stage, and I continued to play in an effort to make sure that no one noticed. But when it was all over and the applause had subsided, my band director threw me under the bus, and he turned to the audience and he said, "Let's have another round of applause for the clarinetist who fell off the stage." His name is Curt Ebersole. And I was thrilled because he got it right. So I continued to play the clarinet. I went to music school. I became a band director, and I was a public school band director for over 30 years. It was a great job, but it's hard to be a band director. You have to teach all those kids how to play their instruments. You've got to deal with the parents. You've got to write the football drills. And you have to take them to contest. Now, contest is the highest form of human torture. This is just not a matter of teaching them the music. You've got to prepare them, load them on the bus, drive for hours to the festival site, take them into a strange place, set them up on a stage in only 10 minutes, and then have the best performance of the year. And there are judges. And these judges, they're not America's Got Talent judges. They don't sit out there and talk to you. No. They sit in the dark at the back with a tape recorder and anonymously record what they think of you in real time. So over the years, I heard comments that were loosely disguised as being positive, but you could really pretty much see through what they were saying. I heard things like, "Words cannot describe what I think of this performance." "Nice uniforms. It was really nice to watch you play." I think everybody should hear this band to know just what is possible. It is remarkable that you traveled so far today to sound like that. And my personal favorite, I have not heard anything that loud or that raucous since I was in the middle of Intercourse, Pennsylvania. My name is John Curtis Ebersole. Thank you very much.
Curt Ebersole!